remember trying to make a comic when I was like 10 or 11 and thinking to myself, this shit is way too hard.
Hello and welcome to Flyover Culture, your guided tour to pop culture in the Midwest. I'm Payton Whaley. For the past decade, Chicago-based artist and writer Daniel Warren Johnson has cemented himself as one of the most exciting creators in comics. Beta Ray Bill, Extremity, Do a Powerbomb, Murder Falcon, and last year he started his new Transformers run as the flagship title for Hasbro's Energon universe. And his new book with artist Riley Rossmo is on shelves now. We're gonna get into all of it, so let's stop wasting time. Let's go get it started.
My name's Daniel Warren Johnson. I am a comic book writer and artist.
Speaking super very broadly, what makes a Daniel Warren Johnson comic?
Action, heart, self-doubt on the part of making it. If I try and make a comic without having like some real heart and like forward motion to the story and with the characters, that it ends up being too hard to finish. I really need to believe in the story and I really need to believe in the characters in order to carry myself all the way to the finish line of making a book from page 1 to page 200.
After reading one or two, you'll know when you're reading a Daniel Warren Johnson comic. His bombastic, maximalist style with a soft spot for quieter character moments announced itself with Space Mullet, a webcomic he started self-publishing in 2012. Now it seems like the larger comics world is figuring out what his fans knew years ago. His ongoing Transformers series at Image Comics is a commercial and critical juggernaut, and his newest book went back for another printing the day it was released. More on those in a bit. But as a fan myself, I was pumped to meet Daniel at his home studio and dig into how he got here.
It probably starts at my local library, honestly. I was trying to get comics anywhere I could. I remember when I was very, very young, at my grandparents' house in upstate New York, there was a really big, old, dusty hardcover of the Dick Tracy daily strips that had some brutal murders in there that I read, and I was blown away. Maybe that influenced me in some way, who knows. I read the crap out of all those, and then I would go to the local library, and they didn't really have superhero comics or comics that maybe had any action in them, but they did have Calvin and Hobbes. As I got a little older, I kind of graduated more into superhero comics and the Transformers comics from Marvel. I'd go into the back issue bins and try and find all those old issues, and I really loved those too.
Johnson fell in love with art at a young age, and he credits his parents with supporting that passion.
They got me a private art tutor who, in middle school, pulled my parents aside during like a, drawing 101 class. Her name was Rosetta. She's a very thick Italian accent, tiny lady, older lady. She's like, you gotta get this kid into the figure drawing class. He's too good for this other stuff that we're doing in this class. We're just drawing like circles and owls and stuff, which I loved. My parents took it very seriously, and the next week I was in an adult figure drawing class.
Now, the love of reading comics and drawing was always there, but creating comics, that was more of an on-again, off-again thing.
Yeah, I remember trying to make a comic when I was like 10 or 11 and thinking to myself, this shit is way too hard. And I abandoned that. And I didn't try and do a comic again until my sophomore, junior year in college, when I was trying to get out a story about my own kind of coming-of-age story and trying to transfer that into my college experience and present it to my class in a way that was understandable. And I found that I could tell a story pretty well, but again, it was a lot of work, and I abandoned it again. After I graduated from college and I was kind of working this dead-end job at a hospital, pushing patients around, I was still drawing all the time, but it was all kind of like fantasy illustration or one-off drawings and doodles in the sketchbook, and I just found the act of just drawing one thing, it's like I put too much time and effort into just one image, and I just felt this kind of pull to be more narrative in my work, even though it's so much work.
Those sketchbooks from back in the day? Johnson still has them, plus plenty of new ones he's filled out over the years.
There's about 51 volumes there, and the first one I made in 2006, the start of my sophomore year of college, and I've just kept up the discipline, and not discipline, that sounds like such a jack-off thing to say. It's just like an extension of myself, and it's like a centralized local place where I can channel all that energy and record it and and put a date on it and remember how I used to draw and how I used to feel. And now writing scripts, I'm going back and looking at those images and finding places to put them where I actually have a space battle. I'm like, I need a spaceship. Oh my gosh. You know, volume 35 from however many years ago. Let's pull that out and really refine it and make it special. It wasn't until that I quit one of those dead-end jobs that I found myself treating art like it was a full-time job and finding myself that way, taking any gig that I could, illustration or graphic design. One of the things that I did, one of the many avenues that I was trying to do was comics again. That was Space Mullet, and it was just trial by fire. And I found that comics was the thing that gave me the most joy, and also where I could find work.
In taking that leap of turning comics into a career, it was another Chicago-based comics pro who gave him some sound, if not a little confusing, advice.
Tim Seeley, I'll name names. Thank you, Tim. I asked Tim how.
It's like down the street.
He's in Portage Park. I was like, Tim Seeley, how do I break into comics? He's like, well, you have to get published. I was like, Tim Seeley, how do I get published? There's the rub. It's like, there's the catch-22. And he basically said you have to fake it until you make it. You know, you have to prove that you can get published or that you have the ability to make work that is publishable before anybody pays you to do it. So I kind of took that to heart and made Space Mullet and just pretended like I was getting paid for it, and I was not.
Space Mullet ran from 2012 to 2017, and it's a great early look at what makes Johnson's storytelling tick. Following that series and a few stints as artist on other writers' books, Johnson worked with publishers Image Comics and Skybound on Extremity, a 12-issue series about family, revenge, and the toll both can take on someone. Not only did this land Johnson his first Eisner Award nomination, but it's also how he linked up with colorist Mike Spicer, who's worked on most of Johnson's titles.
So the other colorist was kind of ghosting us, and so we had to find a different colorist, and Skybound decided that if we got a new colorist, they should start again at issue 1. And so Mike came at a recommendation of another comic book artist friend, and he tried out on 2 pages, and he blew us away. And I was like, oh, you're hired. The whole working relationship all through Extremity was amazing. Mike was fantastic. He's a professional. He's fast. His palettes are great. He's easy to work with. And I was kind of in love ever since. I mean, he's been a huge part of the creative process. And Russ, the same way. You know, I have collaborators that make things easy. And that's a big part of success, I feel.
Russ here being letterer Russ Wooten, another close working relationship with Johnson, and the reason why his book's sound effects are so explosive. So much of Johnson's work is entrenched in his own interests. Murder Falcon is steeped in metal music, Do a Powerbomb is his love letter to pro wrestling, and Transformers is... Okay, have you seen his office?
I don't know if it's so much a thing that I'm intentionally trying to do. It's just, I can't separate myself from the comic making process like my own being. So kind of the things that I love, I think they just kind of naturally bleed into whatever I'm making at the time. And I'm doing my best to try and always update what is kind of moving me forward. I really love golf, but I'm very bad at it. But I would love to do a golf comic.
I was going to say, how do we get 8 issues at a golf? Or I guess at least 18.
Maybe a 9-issue series. You know, I would also love to do some more slice of lifestyle stories where there's no monsters like coming out of the ground, but I haven't figured out the right platform to do that yet.
Music isn't just a theme of Daniel's book Murder Falcon. If you couldn't tell from the guitar collection, the pop punk in the background, or him noodling while we set up, music is something that permeates his whole creative process.
I listen to a ton of music when I draw. Usually in the mornings when I'm like penciling or writing, I will be playing music when it's more the formative stage of making things, whether it be from a blank document or a blank page. I also love to play music. I've been playing guitar since I was 11. I find that it's a way for me to kind of de-stress and still be creative at the end of the day while not worrying about how that musical art form is going to pay my mortgage. Doing comics full time is really amazing. I'm thankful to do it, but it does come with the added weight of like, I'm doing this as a job. And sometimes when you have a creative endeavor be a job, it can be tough, you know, not bad, just different. Guitar and music is completely free of all that baggage.
And with a resume full of pro wrestling, dinosaurs, robots, dark fantasy, Johnson says the variety is just as much for him as it is for the reader.
I think there's an inherent desire for me to see something that maybe I haven't seen before. I think as I get older and as I make more and more things, it's more and more of a challenge to not repeat myself. But for as long as people want my fingerprint, I'm happy to press it right on their eyeballs. There's an open invitation, and when you read one of my books, I do my very best to never be standoffish or protective of something that I'm presenting, because, it's kind of maybe cheesy to say, but I do feel like making art is a way of making connection with the world around me. I am a very outgoing person. I really like meeting new people, making new friends, and when I meet somebody new, one of the first questions I ask is not what they do for work, but rather if they like pro wrestling. And if they don't, I usually ask them why, and then I say the first ticket is on me. Come to a a local wrestling show. Let's have a good time.
The bulk of Johnson's work has been with Image Comics, but that hasn't stopped him from working with DC Comics on Wonder Woman Dead Earth and Jurassic League, which is exactly as silly and wonderful as it sounds, or with Marvel on Beta Ray Bill.
I love working for Marvel and DC. It's a break. It's like having a job. You can only do so much. The sandbox is only so big. And a lot of times it's figuring out what you can get away with, rather than the struggle of trying to make something from nothing. When I work on a book like Wonder Woman, I don't have to rub my hands together and come up with a character design. It's all there on the table. The context, the way people know Wonder Woman, the way she used to be, the way she is now, the way she was in the 70s, whatever. I can take that and take people's kind of preconceptions and twist it just a little bit to make something really special and new, because contextually it just is such a wonderful contrast to everything that's come before.
And while Marvel and DC are the big two, Johnson's work for them set the stage for what's been his biggest series by far. In June of 2023, Image and Skybound released a new series called Void Rivals by Robert Kirkman, the Walking Dead and Invincible guy, and Lorenzo De Felici, with very little details. Just some hints to comic shops that they'll want to order some extra copies. Those that did quickly learned Void Rivals was a surprise launch for a new Energon universe. Transformers and G.I. Joe characters sharing the page. This would be published by Skybound, after both spent over a decade at IDW. And the next series in the line? Transformers, written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson and colored by Mike Spicer.
After Murder Falcon, I went to go do Wonder Woman. We weren't really working together after that, until after do A POWERBOMB, when Sean Makowitz over at Skybound gave me a call and he said, "How do you feel about Transformers?" Honestly, I was a little worried at first because, Transformers was not necessarily known as a dream project for a lot of people. A lot of people just don't want to draw it at all. Not me. I was super excited to draw it, but it's not like Transformers was a very popular thing at the time. But I also really wanted to do it, and so I kind of threw my vibes about career and stuff out the window, and I was just like, I think I really want to do this. I think I'm going to do it. With encouragement from my family, where I was like, I don't know if Transformers is a good career move. And I told my wife Rachel, I was like, but I really want to do it. And she's like, just do it. And so I did, and here we are.
Look at the shelf.
Yeah, look at the shelf. Yeah, you'll have B-roll of this as I'm talking. Rachel once asked me, when will your Optimus Prime collection be complete? And oh babe. Oh honey.
I don't want to get into a ton of plot stuff, because if you haven't read it by now and you're this far into the video, I'd be fascinated to speak with you. But soon after Daniel and I met up, he won Eisner Awards for Best Continuing Series and Best Writer/Artist. And at the time I'm writing the script, the first issue is on its 8th printing. 8th. That's bonkers. So yeah, it's doing okay.
There's small pockets of any fandom that is dissatisfied, but I didn't make the book for them. I made the book for me, and I made a Transformers comic that I want to see. And if the fandom follows, man, I'm so glad they're with me. But if they're not, don't care. I tell myself during the day, it's a different story at nighttime.
Johnson wrote and drew the first story arc, and artist Jorge Corona stepped in to draw issues 7 through 12.
Jorge's been doing an amazing job, and honestly, he makes my scripting work really easy because he's so good at telling a story on his own anyway. It might be time for him to start writing and drawing his own stuff because he's that good.
Whether you're a longtime fan of the Robots in Disguise, or, bless your heart, like me and had only really seen the Bay movies, it's an exciting new universe to see get built.
I'll kind of throw ideas out to my editor, and then I find out that they're using those ideas to kind of piggyback off of for like G.I. Joe, which is awesome. But I'm lucky in that I get to kind of like chart the path forward and have other people follow in the wake, which is really fun. A lot of that canon is being forged in new ways, and there's small details here and there that I have to adhere to that maybe I didn't know beforehand that require some edits, but overall it's been a great experience, and I really do feel like I'm adding something new to what people know about Transformers.
Transformers isn't Johnson's only ironhide in the fire. Last month, we finally got our hands on the first issue of The Moon is Following Us. Not only is Mike Spicer back for colors, but this is a book Johnson is co-creating with first-time collaborator, but longtime friend, Riley Rossmo.
The Moon is Following Us is a new image book by myself and artist Riley Rossmo. So I'm writing this book, and Riley's drawing about 85% of it. I am drawing the other 15-20% of the book. The book happens in 2 different worlds, and we're both taking art duties on a respective world. And I'm really excited. It's very personal. It's about a mom and dad who lose their daughter to this evil force. Not everything is as it seems as they're trying to rescue their daughter out of this terrible place. Riley's one of my closest friends, not just in comics, in like my life. So we're FaceTiming every day, we're texting all the time, we're figuring out the right way to approach the story, and we're actually doing all the art on the same board, like on the same paper. So when he finishes drawing something, he sends it to me, and I draw on the same paper that he does. And if we ever have to do anything separate, when I do get his art, I tape it onto his art. Because we're crazy.
I hadn't read the book when we talked a couple months ago, but now that I have, it's fun to see these collaborators take such a big swing with the creative process. And, I mean, a Johnson Rossmo book is pretty. Water is wet.
I have characters that, because I'm not drawing The Moon is Following Us, or at least a large part of it, I kind of like let that visual burden rest on Riley. And especially with a book where we're making this world out of scratch, it's not like I'm telling Jorge to draw Astro Train where there's a, Google image away. When I tell Riley to draw a character named Pigface that has a bunch of weapons under their coat, he kind of has to go crazy, and go crazy he does. The craziness and the concepts that he's brought to The Moon is Following Us has actually inspired me to take the story in places that it wouldn't otherwise go. So it's really cool to be able to bounce off the visuals that he kind of gives back to me, and in turn giving scripts back to him which have a larger element of the characters that he's made in the ending of the story. It's incredible.
Readers seem to agree. Like I said earlier, the same day issue 1 released, Image Comics announced it had sold out at the distributor level and needed another printing. So no matter where Johnson, Rossmo, and Spicer take the story, it looks like they'll have plenty of people behind them. It's no secret that Johnson doesn't sit on any one series too long. Moon is set to run for just 10 issues, and he told me his time on Transformers will likely conclude around the 25th issue. But he told me a bit about what's coming next, and I'm happy to say it's very, very much him.
Working on comics has been an absolute honor. I personally feel, if I'm gonna wax poetic here for a second, get on the soapbox, I feel like making comics and making stories in this specific medium is so raw and unbridled and free, because all you need is a pencil and a piece of paper, and there's something inherently socialist and democratic about it, with how corporate movies and TV shows and things that other people ingest with their eyes can get. Comics is just so refreshing to have just somebody so quickly able to display their personhood and their take on the world so easily. I don't know, it's such an incredible medium, and I'm so thankful I get to be a part of the industry that celebrates it.
Hey, I didn't intend for this video to end here. In fact, there is more from my time with Daniel coming, but with how much of our talk I wanted to include, I didn't want this video to be an hour long. So come back next week to see him and me take part in one of our favorite pastimes, blowing a paycheck at a comic shop. Make sure you subscribe to Flyover Culture so you don't miss it. For now, make sure you check out The Moon is Following Us and Transformers at your local comic shop. I'll have links to where you can grab them down below. Thanks for watching.